TJ's been feeling pretty good with posterior. Okay, so here we are at Elite Functional Performance again here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Andrew's with me, and we're going to talk about some of the things that we see in the upper body related to some of the issues involving shoulder external rotation and some of the trigger points that we see being a limiting cofactor for overall shoulder movement and shoulder capability. What we often find is guys that end up doing a lot of overhead pressing, a lot of anterior work. Maybe in some cases they'll do some work for the posterior cuff, but we often see a lot of trigger points and just general stickiness in the scapular region that can do everything from inhibit neck range of motion side to side to overall flexion of the shoulders. We can see a lot of immobility of the scapula leading to upper trap dominance, and these are all things that we try to clear with a lot of the work that we do, both in the workouts as well as what guys can do on their own. So we usually use either a hard plastic spiky ball that's got some, some rigidity to it to kind of get through some of those exterior levels of tissue, or the standard lacrosse ball that's also pretty hard, dense rubber. What we would generally do, we'll kind of go through with Andrew, is begin up in that upper trap region and have him just sort of flossing around in this general area to find some areas that might be hot or sticky, little areas of tenderness along the, kind of from the ball of the glenohumeral joint all the way up through the outer border of the scapula, moving across where the supraspinatus, infraspinatus would all be. We'll even sometimes move down under that inferior medial border of the scapula toward rhomboid attachment and see if we can find some spots in there. And then if we find an area that seems to be a little tender, we'll have him go through some shoulder flexion, moving all the way up like that and trying to mobilize the scapula, maybe even getting his arm to come out to the side in an externally rotated position to really start to get some of that mobility back in the scapula. So how we would generally program that, we use kind of like a little kid's ball, a slow-mo ball, purposely underinflated. We use this for head support. So we'll have Andrew come back down into a supine position, make sure there's some good head support there for him. We'll use the lacrosse ball or the spiky ball, and we'll kind of get that up under the shoulder blade. And then at that point, you can see he's basically just going to be moving that shoulder through some range of motion, kind of shifting around until he can find and localize an area that's a little tender, might feel like a restriction or an area that's limiting his overall movement capability. And we'll have him kind of just make sure that he's putting some downward pressure onto that. The idea is trying to create a more supple texture to the trigger points that would be less limiting in range of motion. So he's taking his arm into a externally rotated position and flexing the shoulder, maybe moving into an abducted position, winding that palm forward and back, like moving the ball through the socket. And we can even kind of keep the arm in that abducted position and saw horizontally over that area, moving in and, from the spine out to the shoulder, and kind of get some irritation to that trigger point to get it to let go. This would be the sort of thing that we would generally like to see about minimum 1 minute each arm, but if there's a side that tends to be a little bit worse, we could stay on that side for up to 2 minutes. Nice.